Now the absolute value is an interesting function. So I have the x values, the absolute value of -3 is 3, -2 is 2, absolute value of -1 is 1, of 0 is 0, absolute value of 1, absolute value of 2, absolute value of 3. So graphing these points, -3, 3, -2, 2, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. And my graph would continue on that line. Notice I don't just stop when I run out of points, but I go all the way across the graph. So it would look something like this. I missed a point there. Okay, so that is the absolute value function. You should recognize that v as an absolute value function. Now, the domain is all real numbers. All real numbers have an absolute value. But the range is the non-zero number or non-negative numbers. So it starts with 0 and goes to infinity, since absolute values are always positive. Now, this is a legitimate function, but they get a little confusing. This is called a piecewise function. And the reason it's called a piecewise function is because we graph it in pieces. First, we look at this. When x, y, f of x, y equals x, if x is greater than or equal to 0. So that where I'm greater than or equal to 0 is 0, 1, 2, 3. And we want it to be negative x if x is less than 0. So negative of -3 is 3, negative of -2 is 2, -2, 1. Ooh, isn't this just? This is really just the absolute value function I just graphed. It's just stated a different way. So don't let piecewise functions disturb you. They're just, we just do them in parts. So there's the greater than or equal to 0 part. And here's the less than 0 part. The domain is from -infinity to infinity, and the range of the x values again are non-negative 0 to infinity. Now this is a true piecewise function. If x is less than or equal to 2, then we do y minus x when x is less than or equal to 2. So 5 minus -3 would be 8. 5 minus -2 would be 7. 5 minus -1 would be 6. 5 minus 0 is 0. 5 minus 1 is 4. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So I could graph those points. Oops, didn't have my axes labeled here. So -3, 8, -2, 7, -1, 6, 0, 5, 1, 4, and 2, 3. Now since this is the or equal, this end of this at the 3, right there, that's a dot. Now it's x plus 1 if x is greater than or equal to 2. So 3 plus 1 would be 4. 4 plus 1 would be 5. So 4 and 5. Now because this comes right, if I did 2 plus 1 using this for the greater than, which you need to check. So if x equals 2, this would be 3. If it wasn't just a dot, I would put a circle, already a dot, I'd put a circle there. So this is really going to look like a absolute value function moved over a little bit. It's the v. This one happens to turn out to be the v again. The domain for this will be all real numbers. The 2 counts here and not here. The range, the lowest point I get to is 3. So that will be from 3 to infinity. This one's a little different. When x is less than or equal to 1, it's x squared. So negative 3 squared is 9, negative 2 squared is 4, negative 1 squared is 1, 0 squared is 0, and 1 squared is 1. So I can graph these points, 1, 1, 0, 0, negative 1, 1, negative 2, 4, and 3, 9. Now, this is part of a parabola, so I'd like you to draw it like that instead of trying to draw it straight. And this was the or equal, so this is a dot at this end. Now we want to go with what if x is greater than 1? Well, so negative x, negative 2 plus 1 would be 1. Negative 3 plus 1, no, negative 2 plus 1 would be negative 1. Negative 2 plus 1 would be negative 2. Now, it's also important right here to check what if x equals 1. And that would be negative 1 plus 1, that would be 0. And I want you to go to that point. X is 1, y is 0. Put a circle there, and the circle shows it's open. That point doesn't work, but this one does. And so we'll do this one, and then 2, negative 1, 3, negative 2. It appears it's going to be this line that goes across the graph this way, starting with that open circle to say that point doesn't really work. But this would be the graph. Now the domain, the x values that work, are all real numbers. This one here, not this one. So all real numbers are in the domain. And if we look at the graph, this would continue forever. So would this one. So the range will also be all real numbers. Going from the bottom, this 0 doesn't work, but this one was. So my range will be all real numbers.